Welcome in. Obviously, Anthony, welcome to our beginning of the week episode. For everybody watching, this is probably the last big one before the pre-sale goes live for Altura. So obviously a huge one for the community as a whole. If you guys know, right, if you've been here before, you know what this podcast is. If you're watching it on Spotify, on YouTube, Instagram, Rumble, X, any of the platforms, we're basically all over the place. So welcome back. Welcome back to the Ascended podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Schulke.
I am Anthony Parra.
And tonight, I kind of wanted to change the vibes up a little bit with tonight's episode. So we're calling this episode Why 200 People Will Change the World Before Wall Street Does. Kind of throwing a little bit of shade at the traditional ways of doing things. And I know that sounds like a wild claim, right? Because they have billions and billions of dollars. But history is full of movements where a small group of believers created movements that shocked the entire planet. And in this episode, I'm going to break down exactly why I believe 200 people that we already probably have in Altura can be that spark. And more importantly, why this system today is broken beyond repair and how our community is going to build a new path forward. That's a big claim, right? And so for the next 25 minutes, settle down, tune in, eliminate your outside distractions, and let's push forward. I'm going to make the bold claim again, stated more simple and clear. So again, every world-changing movement in history started with a small circle. It wasn't millions of people, right? Because everything that's significant in our lives today, it could be religion, it could be politics, it could be entertainment, sports, any industry, right? Had to start with a couple people, ideally just one person, right? We know that as like the founder of a movement or the initial spark of the flame, right? The revolutionary, a lot of times is what they're called. Somebody who inspired the few people around them to act before anybody else had the courage to, because you had to. Christianity, right? I made that example before. That was 12 disciples, 12 people in a backwater province of Rome. Today, over 2 billion followers, over a quarter of the planet. The American Revolution had fewer than 60 men sign the Declaration of Independence. Those people quite literally put their heads on the chopping block because King George at the time, right, he could have went after them and said, these are the people that created this spark, right? If we execute them, right, if we make a public example of them, we could end this revolution. So these people were quite literally going out there, you know, not with a couple $100 that Altura is for the initial investment, but they're actually putting their lives on the line. They're doing something so significant, most of us couldn't even comprehend it. And risking their lives, their families' lives, and their fortunes to do so, investing in something that was beyond even modern comprehension. But the belief set fire to what would become, right, the American Empire. And that's insanely inspiring, to me at least. The civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, right, refusing to give up her seat on the bus, sparked a nationwide shift. But it began with a few handfuls of organizers in Montgomery, Alabama. Think about that. So movements have reshaped nations, as we just said, as well as cultures, with a group smaller than your high school graduating class. So when I say 200 people in Altura can change the game because those examples, and especially before Wall Street even wakes up, that's not hype. That's just history repeating itself. And so as I do every time, right, this is going to be kind of a conversation. Thankfully, Anthony is here tonight. And I want to turn it from just me, you know, preaching to you guys to actually breaking this down. Because I don't just believe in stating something. I kind of like to examine and challenge the point. And we find out whether or not it holds. So Anthony, when you think of this idea that small groups, right, some of them that I just mentioned, but obviously many, many more, drive massive change, what is kind of in the modern world a good example that you can think of, something else that might exist out there that's done the same thing?
Small groups that incite change. Well, that's kind of the concept of free speech in politics. Theory, the way that works is that groups of people who have ideas, fundamental ideas, in contrast to the current agenda, can have the freedom of speech to get other people on board with their idea, speak their mind, speak freely, create communities of people, kind of build networks and create change that way just by voicing their opinion. So I think that's something that is a fundamental right if you live in the United States that happens. It's kind of hard for groups to influence something as large as like the presidential election, because it just comes down to two parties and there's a large disparity there. But local things like that, if you're not really satisfied with how your mayor is handling something in your town, that would be an example of that. And all it takes is just a few signatures on a petition to make small changes like that in your local communities. I think that's probably the most relevant to all demographics, all types of people, people that are making change in the real world, people that are just, you know, living by how the world tells them they should. generally, if you really wanted to, you could make a change as small as that in your community.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of these micro examples, right? We typically, it could be politics. A lot of times it's just the way we think we know the world works. So it could be that could be science, right? You have a group of researchers in a lab at Harvard that puts out a study, and then all of a sudden the entire world changed their belief on this theory or idea. Could be a lot of times, right? We don't think about this, but we are impacted by it is like Hollywood, right? You see like celebrities repping a certain type of shoe or clothing, right? Kim Kardashian, I remember like with her like Skims collection, and all the like women start wearing that stuff. It's like so crazy, right? Because that's like one family. That's like a couple sisters, right? And then all of a sudden they could influence the entire market for a style of clothing, quite literally, which is obviously $1 billion industry. So it's this matters in about any realm of life. Obviously, some are much more catastrophically important if not handled correctly, but others can just be changing the day-to-day patterns of where we shop, what we spend our time doing, etc. That's kind of one reason why this matters, but the real reason and why I say we have to have something like Altura is because the truth is the entire system in a way is flawed. I don't want to say, I don't like using just the word broken, as I've said before, because I think that it's just it's working for the most part. There's just some imperfections that, if tweaked, could make our society, our world, our way of existence better. And we don't necessarily need to scrap everything. We just need to identify that and come around to make change in a positive way. So banks, right? That's one of the biggest things that I recognize personally when I brought Anthony on board, brought other people on board to try to build Altura. I went through this challenge myself. I had to build a business credit score. I had to beg and plead, right, to get an American Express business card, be able to have 0% interest with that introductory offer, and find a way to just get a few $1,000s that I can put into my company. They won't lend to first-time founders if you don't have like significant traction. Most people have that like misconception on social media that, oh yeah, just get a business card, start an LLC, and get $50,000 and put in, whatever investment, and you'll make money. It's not that easy. You can't just go have a bank give you $50,000. They'll look at your personal credit score. They'll look at a million other things, what your track record is with business, and they don't really give a shit if you're brand new to the industry. They will happily hand credit to corporations that are drowning in debt, but somehow happen to do billions of volume each year, but not to a 22-year-old, let's say, with $1 billion idea. And I think that that's broken. Like, again, imperfected, whatever you want to call it, but I think that has to change because it's favoritism, and that creates, corporate favoritism, which can create monopolies where you don't get fair competition. Therefore, we don't improve the market. So again, looking at it from a very technical way, I think that that's a flawed system. Venture capital is a closed club, and it's even worse, in my opinion. If you don't go to Stanford, right, you hear that all the time. If you're not the Stanford graduate, you're not golfing with the partners at Sequoia. So good luck raising a dime for what you want to do in life. And universities, they'll charge you 5-6 figures, sometimes even yearly, but they won't teach you how to run payroll, how to pitch a deck properly, how to launch a campaign. They'll teach you, Anthony, what did we learn? It was like, I'm trying to think, like how to index price like a mutual fund or like an option down to the cent, and figure out how the stock option is priced. That doesn't necessarily, that's cool, but it doesn't help me raise money and get a business off the ground. Were you ever in that innovation class that we took?
Yeah, it was. That was one of the only classes I felt like where I wasn't learning something that I would probably just pay somebody to do.
Yeah, because it was like in that was one of the only classes, right, that went against the grain. Because and again, I'm very grateful for the education I got, but I think and I think actually we got to go to a school that was kind of doing more than a lot of other universities, because they actually sent us out. We had to go talk to business owners. We had to go get involved in our space, right, especially with our public relations and just being able to be good leaders. That's an important skill. Talking to people that have significant industry experience, own businesses, are making real world money, because they talk differently than your college professor that might have never even started their own company. They do things that other people don't do. So when you get real world experience, that changes the game entirely, because you realize that these microcosms of behavior are so much different in the real world than the theory that you just read about in a textbook, especially one that was written 40 years ago. I think that most of us tend to read. So here's the thing. It's not always been like this. And again, most of us have that misconception. We think that like, oh, it's just hard. It's always been hard like that. But history shows us that the system is built to protect gatekeepers, not innovators. In the 1900s, banks literally formed circle or cartels and circles to keep small businesses, right? They would meet out of industrial expansion. That's again before monopoly laws. You had Rockefeller buying up different industries. They would purposely gut their prices to bleed out competitors, and they favored certain companies. He made agreements with the railroads, right, to be able to transport his energy, right, cheaper than anybody else. And if you weren't wealthy, right, you stayed locked out. You quite literally couldn't afford to survive without putting yourself in tons of debt. So you didn't really have a choice. Young founders know this today. They feel it. It's not paranoia. It's real. So, I mean, Anthony, you've worked with other people, not just even at the academy, the people that have started their own businesses, but meeting business owners yourself, what's the number one thing that you see kills a lot of people's ambition and good ideas before they get out the door to start?
Most common, most prevalent one, and this isn't even unique to me, it's just the one that's most talked about because I truly think it's the most prevalent, is the concept of analysis paralysis. Thinking so much about all the things that go into just starting to a point where you spend so much time thinking that you never actually took a step in the right direction. And that problem kind of persists even once you make it past that initial phase of setup or figuring out what the plan is moving forward or figuring out your why or any of that. In and of itself is enough for most people to kind of shrink away from it and not ever figure that out. But it persists at every level, from beginning to intermediary to until you're a Fortune 500 company.
Why do you think that? Okay, I think I kind of know the answer to this, but I want to word it in a way that most viewers are gonna have to think about. But when you talk about George Washington, right, and obviously he led one of the biggest revolutions in human history that would have one of the largest impacts on the world forever, right? So he is a very substantial guy. But when all you talk about are these great feats, not just of like revolutionaries, but let's say founders, right? You only talk about like Elon Musk sleeping on the floor to put that rent money toward his business and not like his day to day, which probably was not too much different from most business owners. Do you think that the stories and the lore you hear, right, makes us think that these people are like that they don't, that they don't say, I got to eat lunch, I got to use the bathroom just like most of us, and that like they kind of put them in this like unrelatability mindset. Well, I think too many of them are like, I don't think George Washington was like, his brain was like I mean, most of us know George Washington was just like an average guy. Some would say he's even below average intelligence, but he just would do stuff instead of just talking or thinking about it and saying it, right? So it's like, I think there's like that inflationary thing of like, you think like they were constantly like writing the Magna Carta every day. That's not what they were doing. They're just average people.
Yeah, this is another cliche. People talk a lot about being scared of failure, but when you talk about that, we literally mean that, like, through the development of his success probably failed like infinite more times than he could count. Like, he just stopped counting at a certain point. It's like, I feel like these people aren't necessarily like on a different wavelength or caliber of mindset. It's more like they just aren't. They have a goal in their mind. It makes more sense to them to just start acting, even if you don't know what the best solution is at the time. If you don't know what the most calculated, perfect step that you should take next is, just do something anyways. And if it turns out that you were horribly wrong and that was the wrong thing to do, at least you know for sure now what the right thing to do was. I think that's the difference, is not being afraid of like what people think about you, what it's going to do to your business right now. I mean, at a certain degree, you got to care about that. But when you're just starting, like, this is the time for you to learn. And I guess that's the bigger point, is I don't think people understand that failing is how you learn. It's not that you just do enough research to know enough about it so that you can do everything perfect the first time. Like, people only figured all this out. People only know all the research you're doing because somebody failed enough times to figure out what the right thing was. And no two businesses are the exact same. So you kind of got to take it at your own pace. Like, it's okay to not know what the right thing to do is. You just need to do something. And if it's the wrong thing, now you know what the right thing is.
Okay. Yeah, we don't see that though. That's the only issue, is what I think. So like, tying it back to the inflationary point, it's like social media too, when all you see are gurus winning. I actually saw, it was very funny. I saw this picture of this guy. I was standing on like the edge of an infinity pool today on Instagram, and in one hand this guy was like analyzing it, because in one hand he was holding like a laptop, like looking at it. The other hand he was holding an espresso martini, and then in his mouth he had a cigar. And the guy's like, what is he doing? Because like, he can't set the laptop down because he's on an infinity pool, and then like he can't drink his espresso martini because he has a cigar in his mouth. But why is he standing there other than just to aura farm the picture? Like, he literally walked over there. He's like, take a picture with me holding all this to capture the vibe. And then he had to walk away so he could even drink his drink or puff his cigar. It's like the amount that we think it's just a movie scene every day, like these people paint it out, is crazy. It's we talked about the different stages of capitalism, right? Initially, and too many people are on that like phase 2 or 3 of like, you can just invest, you can just be a guru and you'll make it, versus the people that actually make money are the people doing hard work. They're not just posting on Instagram, they're in the trenches like this, podcasting every day. They're the people with businesses that are boring, right? Like in this case, funding companies, raising funds is not exciting. It's boring. It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of rejection, just like sales. But those same sales jobs, right, are the jobs that exist all of history. Energy, utility, logging, plumbing, like these are all careers that are never going to go away. But that's also because they're so boring. Most people only chase hype-driven things, and that doesn't pay the bills when the hype ends. So you have to realize that the real value in the world is almost always going to be something you're going to end up like getting bored with. You just have to understand that that's part of growing as an entrepreneur and getting maturity. It's not just like the rush of, oh, we started the Boston Tea Party. It wasn't the entire revolution. Most of it was like, hey, we got 500 men dying now. We need to move another 500 men east. Like, these are hard decisions. They have to go home and like almost cry themselves to sleep. And we think every day was like winning Bunker Hill. It's not like that. It's a rough, long process. So I wanted to break that realism with you. But I want to talk like hype specifically. I talked about Supreme the other day. If most of you don't know, it's a very hype-based clothing brand. But why do you think like a Supreme hoodie sells out in seconds? Or like, why do sneakers like resell for thousands of dollars? What are kind of the factors that go into that pricing a lot of times?
I mean, for the most part, it's just so companies do a really good job of making their consumers feel like this is something exclusive, something that gives a status symbol about them when they're wearing it or using it, that makes them feel like they're in the know or like part of a crowd of people that has some sort of acceptance that you otherwise wouldn't if you didn't wear that thing or have that thing. You mentioned shoes. Like, I know that for a long time, like Air Jordans, like Nikes, the Dunks, the SBs have been, it's like it's to a point now where you can't even just buy them off the line. You have to like go on the sneakers app and like put in for the raffle in order to buy them full price. So it's kind of funny. Like, you're not even winning the shoe, you're just winning the right to buy the shoe. That's how in demand they are. Certain models are.
I remember that too. That was one of the first things I got to know about you, is like when happened to make us roommates that one summer at the academy. Like, you were showing me like your shoe collection. Like, oh, this guy collects shoes. So I just remember that. That's like, I forgot that was like I wasn't playing. This guy's like a shoe collector too. So you definitely know what that hype cycle is like.
Yeah. It's been a while since I was into that, but it's I used to play off that all the time, and it was almost like making investments. Like, some shoes I would just buy because I knew that if I was to win that raffle, like, they were going to be like, without even a guarantee, because they're not for sale anywhere else. Like, I just knew they were going to be worth 4 or 5 times more than the asking price, just because of what it was. Like, just a model of Air Jordan, like, no defining, no like cool colorway. I mean, sometimes colorway, or like certain collaborations. I remember like Jordan 3 Ama Manier. I won that drop forever. That was like 2021, I think, 3 times in price. And I didn't even, like, I just saw it was the collab, and it wasn't even a colorway I would ever wear. I don't even buy the sizes that I wear. Like, I just know what sizes do well and what collabs and what models do well, and then you just buy them. So that's all. To tie that back though, it's like they've done such a good job of making you feel like you are becoming a part of something, where you are becoming more accepted by the people that you want to model. Like, they like you mentioned celebrities earlier. I mean, heck, the Air Jordan was like named after Michael Jordan, right? So originally it was like, oh, this is the shoe.
Selling the shoe? Is that what they were selling? They were that was like the physical good you received. So the same logic applies. Like, you weren't buying a Travis Scott edition, right? Just because it was like this brown color. You could buy a million other brown shoes. You're buying it because Travis Scott's brand is crazy. Like, it was increasing like crazy at the time. He's doing the McDonald's Happy Meal collabs. Like, he's the guy. And so like his shoes reflect that brand. So like, let me ask you then, why would Pudgy Penguins or CryptoPunks or Bored Ape, like NFTs, be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in some cases, if they're just like like a Bored Ape? That's not the first time a cartoon picture of a monkey or an ape has existed on the internet. So why is this one selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars?
They've just done well at the same thing, making you feel like you're part of a community of people that have something you don't, and it gives you a status symbol to say that that you're a part of that. It makes you feel accepted, I think, is the bigger thing, by someone who would think you're cooler, or that you are something more than you currently are by having that thing.
So it's not because of, we could sell NFTs, we could sell hand drawn pieces of paper. It doesn't matter what we sell. That's why I think NFTs are like, it got a lot of like shit really from a lot of people, because the art didn't really matter. It was more important that you look behind the art. And that's why a lot of them failed, because the product itself was great, but the circle was what people were buying. Again, I've mentioned many times, but I know for a fact, like Jimmy Kimmel or Justin Bieber were buying Bored Apes. Like, you get to be in a circle of a few thousand people that they're also in. That's like being in a private group chat, like with Justin Bieber. That's worth thousands of dollars to some people, like super fans, right? You can go to the same real world events and you'd be let in with Justin Bieber if you're, one of his biggest fans, because you pay that much money. So if they weren't in it, the picture wouldn't be valuable. And unfortunately, like for them, that was kind of the main value they had. They didn't have a lot of other things driving value behind that picture, which is what most investors at the time got burned out of other collections, because they didn't look at what was going on behind just buying a picture. They just say, oh, this is the newest one, I'm going to put my money in it because everything was going up. And then when the entire market got the rug pulled beneath its feet, when they said, hey, crypto's coming back down, prices are dropping, you better be in something that's actually valuable. Most people weren't, because, people just could believe without evidence if everything was going up, like the stock market in the late 1920s. And then when the 30s hit and times got hard, you better have hoped you were in the right spot. CryptoPunks, right, were basically just pixel art. It's even worse, in my opinion, art than Bored Apes, because it's literally pixelated. It's not even like hand drawn or anything like that. Just because nobody cared about, that stuff in 2017. It was just first on the market. And today they sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We just checked the price yesterday. You can pay $200,000 for a pixelated image that you could probably hand draw, but ChatGPT can make in about 15 seconds. So you're not paying clearly for the pixelated art. But because a small group of people that now have tons of money, celebrity status, believed in it first, and it happened to be there at the right time. Supreme, like we mentioned, started as a skater shop in New York, right? It was just like the kind of degenerate, like streetwear. It's kind of like what's the other one? Not Zoomies, kind of like brands like that, right? So they didn't need TV commercials. They just needed believers like Apple, right? People on Black Friday willing to line up outside the stores. If you didn't believe that a Black Friday deal was gonna exist, right? If they said 50% off all over the store, if you didn't believe that they were actually going to have items and that they were going to be 50% off, would people be sleeping outside the store? Let me ask you that question. What do you think? Yeah. So it has to be from a source that actually is going to drive value, and it has to execute on that. And it has to have a reputation for having executed. A lot of that comes, right? If you haven't proven yourself yet, lay out the roadmap. Show them how you're a new store like Supreme that is tying itself to importance. Celebrities, limited edition drops, collaborations, all do that. So here's the question, Anthony. When you look at these like hype cycles, not just NFTs, but Jordans, right? Even like as crazy as like most of us have played like Fortnite, right? You see Fortnite all the time making skins and collaborating with like characters from people in real life, dances, songs, things like that. So how do you separate the empty hype from real vision and know what's going to do well? Mainly, the difference between a brand, if you had to define it, that just fades, one that's built only on hype and one that's built on infrastructure. What are the main differentiators that kind of go into that?
I'd probably first look at the owners. I'd look at what they've accomplished in the past. If what they've accomplished in the past is kind of uncertain or shady, even, I mean, probably just kind of seems like something they're trying to get you hyped about in the beginning. On the contrary, though, if that person was like constantly promoting this, regardless of how well their media did, was constantly giving value and not just telling you to buy their product or like join their community. Like if it was at least somewhat of a value to you to be a part of that community, I think that'd be a good indicator. So I'd probably look at the owners first, and then I would probably look at concepts of what it is the community or product does. Like, does this make my life better in some way? Like I talked about value earlier, but value from what that person is putting out should mean that the actual, the construct of the product or community itself is something that furthers your progression along and what it is you're trying to achieve. If that's something as simple as financial gain, short-term or long-term, educational benefits, networking opportunities, we're talking kind of in the space of NFTs. So, and in that light, or in crypto tech communities, things like that, that's what that makes me think of. And then I'd probably look at the members that are currently in it. Like, are people active? Do they seem to support it? What are they also associated with? So yeah, I probably look at those three things.
Well, I've been asked too, like, why are we launching at this point, right? The crypto market hasn't been proven to come back for this cycle, right? We know October and November are always huge and hot months in the space. So sure, there's like a 90% chance that a lot of people make a lot of money if they buy our collection and invest before the market heats back up again. But it's like, why do it before any of that? Why be here now? Well, it's because that's the perfect way to express that we're different from everybody else. Because, right, we're in that off cycle, and in the off cycle where nobody's doing it, you have to stand out. So you do stand out because you're the only people, but nobody's going to spend money on you, or they're just going to say NFTs, that's a scam, unless you come out and you hit them in the jaw with a strong white paper, a website, a clear roadmap to say, hey, everybody else has pulled the rug on meme coins, on NFTs. We're going to brand ourselves as the exact same thing. But you know what? We're different because here's our roadmap. These people didn't do that. These people weren't on a podcast talking about their idea. They were hiding their identity. They were being fake. They were just planning on deceiving people from the start. But we're not going to do that because we've, in very clear detail, laid everything out. We've already started building infrastructure. You guys can see our website, the developments of that. So yeah, I do want to do it when nobody else is talking about it, because we actually have the confidence and the social proof and the credibility to go out behind everything we do and actually prove to you why that's the case. If we were rug pulling, right, if we were going to disappear off into the wind like most of these people, then of course we wouldn't wait. We wait till the hype is here, where people are just not even looking twice and would buy anything. That's where scams exist. They don't exist in the empty stage where you're the only person people are looking at. They're in the dark corners doing all these crazy other things, right? You don't see meme coins existing in like the off season, because it's only when everybody and their brother doesn't really give a shit about losing $20 and is willing to put it in, because all of crypto is doing good, right? So that's why Altura is different. That's why we are different. Anthony mentioned it. We're not just art. I already showed you guys. Otherwise, a pixelated image I would be paying to not have that image because it takes up space on my computer. But people are paying for that because of the people behind it. You have to look and read. You have to do something hard, right? You have to put effort in. And this business of investing is no different. We're not just hype. We're building infrastructure on top of the hype. So that way the hype can get us there. It can get us attention. But unlike other projects, we don't just survive alone based on the hype. So that way when the hype disappears, which it's inevitable, probably around February of next year after this crypto market heats up, it's going to disappear. But if we weren't building value that whole time, it would be a bad day for us, a bad time to be existing. We are building funding, education, real businesses, money, capital to actually invest in your company to get you off the ground, real world meetups. These things shouldn't be taken lightly, because they could quite literally change the entire existence of your business, right? Or make it from inexistent to real. And the education, the partnerships. You don't know the value of having somebody in your corner or finding connections until you actually know that person, right? You could quite literally be creating $1 million connection and changing your life. That's what makes belief in Altura, in a market of scams and rug pulls, something more than just a JPEG. And I hope you guys see that. Real quickly, there's, I think, 5 or 6 main points, but I'm going to read the bullet points, right? This is what I'm going to break it down in practice, what Altura really is. I'm going to give you guys the annotated white paper of 5 points. It's only 5 sentences to explain the main benefits. But we're the first NFT powered syndicate for entrepreneurs. NFT is great, right? You could care about it, you could not. It just basically means we have a token on the blockchain that in real time can't be forged, it can't be faked. So people can't fake their way into our community. You have to have invested to get in. And that NFT is the digital security guard showing whether or not you actually invested in our community. It's like buying a stock, right? You can show that a stock on the stock market is yours. We are not a stock. We're not a security, right? Because that's a SEC thing. Securities Exchange Commission. We're not IPOing or anything like that. But an NFT does the same thing for blockchain-based technologies. And it shows whether or not something's real. And that's the real utility behind NFTs from the start. So this means your NFT isn't just a collectible. It's not just a cool image, which actually you guys are going to get to help design if you participate early. You're going to get to design our art. It's your key. Think of it like a key for a door that actually works, where everyone else, right, could have the same exact image. They could screenshot it and be like, got your NFT, bro. But their key isn't going to turn the lock that gets them inside of the platform. First, it unlocks the private network of entrepreneurs, myself, Anthony, thousands of other people, celebrities, right? Operators and investors. Second, it connects you to $1 million, $1 million US dollar plus community fund seeded from selling these, right? That will fund your companies, that will actually create your startup. So like I said, you don't have to go beg and plead for business money or Amex to give you a business credit card, which a lot of times they'll decline you for. Third, it gives you access to accelerator funding. So one NFT in that is going to direct the vote. So think about like just upvoting or downvoting based on the amount of tokens you hold. There's only 8,888. So you guys get to decide if our meetup next month is in New York, Tokyo, Boston, Tampa, whatever it's going to be based on those votes. And you will actually decide what happens. You're not just going to be investing passively. Fourth, it unlocks those global meetups. So in addition to deciding what Altura does, what we invest in, what projects we start, you get to use that token on your phone to probably in real world actually get through security. We'll probably literally have somebody being like, where's your NFT token? Okay, you got it. You're into the event. You guys can come to our conferences, our meetups, and discuss business ideas. We'll talk about where the market's moving, just like we are here. We'll do private education. We'll bring in celebrity guest speakers, perhaps. All of these things that you see at these conferences that founders pay thousands of dollars to go sit and listen to for free, just because you have our token. And then finally, most importantly, for most of you, the main benefit is you're going to get enterprise level tools. So if I invest in Anthony's company that I don't know, like let's say he creates a software that takes your YouTube video like Opus Clip and chops it up into a bunch of TikToks that you can post. And he's selling that service for $30 on the market. Instead of you paying $30 and having 1 million subscriptions to try to get your business off the ground, we'd invest in most of those companies that are doing what you'd be paying for. And then Anthony comes and says, hey, I'll give all of the Altura members a free subscription, which helps him because he gets users for his platform when it's launching. And you guys get to have the technology without paying for it. And so these could be worth, $2,000 a year, when you stack them up very quickly, that you guys are just going to get handed. Kind of like benefits on a credit card, right? A lot of those companies have that type of stuff. So you're going to get to utilize all that stuff. And obviously, the more benefits we have, the more meetups we're doing, the more members competing to get those tokens, it's going to drive the price of your NFT up, which in this case is a concert ticket or an access pass. You could go back on the market and relist for more money. You could buy it for $200, like CryptoPunks relist it for $200,000. That's quite literally what's painted out on our website, because that 1,000x potential exists in this industry compared to others. So that doesn't fade after mint. It begins after mint, right? And we're already starting to build it out and show the social proof and the visuals of our website and all that stuff on the front end. And that's what makes Aganos different. So let's look at 12 months, Anthony. When you see where, the vision I just painted out, let's think about 12 months from now, it'll be September of 2026. What do you see us doing? Like, what do you see in the real world happening for most people that like just paint out like a day for somebody that could be an Altura holder, what they could be going through?
I think a day, let's just come up with a day in which we used most, if not all of the benefits. The day starts out with checking the community, see what everybody's up to, saying what's up, seeing what's on the calendar for what's coming up next, when are we meeting next, either online or in person. Probably using the resources, either the educational tools, so the things that are going to teach you how to get to a point where you can maybe use Altura use the funding opportunities through Altura, or even how to use the softwares and things that we've integrated as part of your membership to start working on your own business. You put some time into developing your business. You work however many hours you need to that day to get done what you need to. Go to the gym maybe, come back and plan your next in-person event when we are, as a community, going to meet somewhere really cool, first of all, but then get to discuss things and discuss the future of Altura and what it looks like as a member to have a say in what the community fund gets put into. Maybe you get to put your input as to what you think could be the next idea that does well enough for us to invest in that business opportunity. And overall, just be able to be in a spot where you're like daily, not only developing yourself, but working with people that are of the exact same mindset that are also looking to develop each other. Bounce ideas off of each other, bounce what it is you're working on for inspiration, things like that. And just be in a setting where you don't necessarily have to go out and look for those people that make you better by being around them, because you're constantly surrounded by them in the community. So day to day, I think it's going to be a lot of self-development, a lot of business development for your personal business, but also the community aspect is huge in that you get to be a part of something that is accomplishing a goal together and is otherwise nothing without the people that make it up what it is.
I like that. I don't know if most of you guys have sat down and done the like dream day experiment, but in the visual, but if you know exactly, down to the brand name underwear you're wearing, what your dream day looks like, what kind of coffee you're drinking, what your car looks like. If you visualize it in that much detail, there's a very high likelihood it actually becomes true. You guys don't see all the steps in between. Most of the time, you start moving subconsciously in a direction that makes that happen because your brain keeps focusing on an endpoint, right? And so even if I had to go to the door right now, if the lights went out, I could still find my way there because I visualized this room and I know where the door is. And I might just constantly, like, I could close my eyes and stand up and I could probably navigate my way there without running into any of this lighting equipment or stuff like that because it's real. I see it. And I can actually physically see this. It's really hard to see where your business might end up, which is why you have to spend time developing a vision. If you're not surrounded by visionaries, people that also do this, it's gonna be really hard. If you're surrounded by your buddies that are like playing Subway Surfers and eating gordita crunches at Taco Bell every other day and like not working on themselves, then it's gonna be really hard to put yourself in a position where you can win. So most of you underestimate that effect of having the right people and overestimate the ability that you think, or let's say overestimate um, how drastic your life really isn't going to be affected by having these factors involved. We kind of just assume that we're going to be okay when in reality we're probably affected a lot more than we think. I guess that's also probably an underestimate if I had to word it that way. But I'm a visionary. That's what I do. The reason that I started making money is because I stopped being a visionary and I just took those visions and then started acting. I'm really good at teaching people how to be visionaries in that way. So I'm just going to freestyle real quick for like 30 seconds. Vision that somebody out there might have. Let's say you're in Tampa, Florida, wake up in an apartment, the air is like warm, you can like feel it on your skin, the sun's kind of already rising, you can hear the waves in the background crashing. You get up, you make some coffee from like this one click, like $400 espresso machine. Open your laptop and you have like 3 text messages from your business partners, people that you met at an in-person conference that you drove to down in Miami a couple of weeks ago. They just started this business with you. It's an AI business that can be a customer support bot, let's say, for major small businesses around the country. That are in need of AI integration. So now you're selling a $4,000 package to people around the country, trying to look at expanding that to different parts of the world now. And you guys are doing like 40 to 50K in revenue. 3 people that just had this idea. How did you get the money to develop the software? How did you get the time and all that? Well, first of all, you were still working your job, so you had to take off, drive down to Miami for that conference, hoping that it would pay off. And you met these 2 buddies that were very passionate about AI, just like you. You bought the Altura token, and that was one of the first ways you got involved. Then you went on our meetup online after we talked about it at the conference, and you guys put in your idea for getting funding. You say, I need about $12,000 to get this off the ground. Altura gives you that. We partner with you for maybe 20% of your company. And you guys have the funds that you pay the developer for to get the software built. You just start reaching out to customers, different businesses, and pitching your idea, and you get sales closed. So within 6 months, you're at that point where you're doing 30 to 50K. Your life is now changed. You could quit that shitty job. You now have your apartment paid for, and you just get to meet with your buddies who probably also live down the road and hit the beach with you every day because you took action, and you had that safety net, that transition point of having the connections, having the money without having to quit your job and go all in right away, because Altura gave you the people, the funding, the network, and more importantly, the belief that you could actually get it done with the education that we'll be putting out. Anybody could do that. That could be anybody's life right there. You could be in Dubai, you could be in Tampa, you could be in Boston. It doesn't matter. You could just be in the Midwest, living, on a farm, not giving a shit about anybody else. But either way, making money from doing something that you got inspired to do by being a part of something bigger than yourself. I think that's real. I think that's somebody's real vision out there. It might be, that's a really good life, I'd say, for a lot of people, right? Having their bills paid for, living on a beach. Do you think a lot of people do that? Do you think a lot of people have taken the time to really figure out what kind of espresso am I drinking? Like what kind of car is parked downstairs in this like beach house, townhouse style? Is it like a orange McLaren? Is it like a white Porsche? And if they don't have those details figured out, there's a good chance that they don't give a shit enough to execute on them. And so if a lot of people do that, though, I think their lives are going to change. Altura, again, will teach you how to do that and give you all those resources. Do you think someone out there wants like the life like that? I think there's people that are looking for that outlet. So what do you think of it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think most people are not living the life that they thought they would when they were younger, or that they aspired to when they were younger. I think most people spend pretty much all of their working lives assuming that they will one day reach that point, but then not doing what it is they need to in the time to get to there. And so they kind of live this life of delusion where it's like, yeah, one day I'll be rich. Everyone thinks they're going to be rich one day. Everyone thinks they're going to make it. Very few people act on their ambition, act on ideas that they have because they're told that it's too risky. They're told it's not ever going to work. There's already that thing already exists. People already do it better. But I know for a fact that most people would be living at least a little bit differently if they could. And whether that's a factor of just economic things or societal things, I don't really know. But the truth still stands though, that if you knew exactly what it was you wanted to be doing and you knew exactly how you envision yourself living, if nothing else, it at least makes it easier to, in the times when you otherwise would have quit, remember that you still have this to work towards, and that's good enough reason for you to get up and get done what you need to today, even when you don't necessarily feel like it.
And again, I think part of it too, and a reason people give up is because it seems like too much to take on at one point. Because like you need to work on so much. The most important thing that most millionaires and billionaires will say is like the first million's the hardest million you'll ever make, and it's extremely easy after that point. Because most people are trying to build a business, which also it's like a loop, right? You build the business, but to build the business, you have to become the person that can build the business, and then that's hard. But so like the business won't be built until you become that person, but it's a paradox because you need to be that person to build the business. So you have to work on yourself and you have to build a business at the same time and go through something that's that hard, which is why you see a lot of people that are traumatized or have some significant life change, like a loved one die or a relationship fall through or something like that, because that's like taking the clay dough, that's you, and just slamming it on the table where it just flattens out and you're like, okay, well, I was working on a mug or whatever, and now it's just this pile of shit basically. But you know what the great part is that clay is now malleable. It's willing to accept outside input. It doesn't think it runs the world and is already doing everything right. That's Altura. You're willing to take the risk of me slamming you on a table, and then coming in and saying, I believe at the end of this, I'm going to be a fully functioning like vessel that can execute on the business and turn myself into something better than what I had before. That's the risk that almost always pays off if you're not willing to, like if I just went like this, I wouldn't really be like breaking what I had. I'd just be taking what I had and making it a little bit worse, honestly. Probably be worse than what I started with. But if I completely, throw it and break it into pieces, there's a greater chance you're actually going to be able to completely rebuild it better, versus just being malformed, right? So that's kind of a cool analogy to use. But like, you need to be able to take the risk on of doing that. People that are heartbroken, people that don't have a lot going for them, it's typically easier to accept. But either way, you have to take a leap in any regard. So if you had the resources, the network, so like the people to encourage you to say, hey, it's okay to take this risk on. If you had the funding to say, hey, you can use this money instead of your own. If you had the education of exactly from other people like myself or other people that have walked these milestones to say, this is what you're going to feel like emotionally, mentally, and how to get through it. So the playbook. And then you had real world events where you could quite literally talk to other people making these things real online or in the real physical world. That's going to be everything, the ultimate like toolkit in one place that anybody needs to transform their life and therefore the money they make in it. And if you could buy all those things separately, which you probably can, it would cost you thousands of dollars. I'm offering it to you guys just for a price of being early and a significantly less cost, because you're willing to take the risk on. And I want to value that. What do you think? What would you think? Let's say, because you started your coaching, like fitness business and everything. Which of those do you think was like the most underrated like thing I just pointed out to have in your corner? Funding, like having funds available to invest, to set something up, having the know-how of like how to navigate those milestones, having emotional encouragement and support, a million other things. What stands out to you?
Yeah, funding I feel like is kind of something that comes after you've figured out what it is you want to put together. Funding isn't really helpful for you if you have no vision for what it's to become. So I wouldn't say it's been that for me. I think the biggest thing is the last two you just said, actually. I mean, I'm not even trying to just repeat what you said, but truthfully, like, I felt more than anything that I was lost, and that there was not lost in the sense that I don't know what to do, but that I feel like there's so much to do, and I feel like I'm behind because I'm not at a certain point in my progression yet to where it overwhelmed me, to a point of feeling like I don't even know what to focus on right now, because every time I focus on one thing, there's like another thing that I think I'm lagging on or falling behind, or because I don't have this already set up, then this is pointless to do so. It's all faked. I mean, the
So
truth
like,
is,
so like having a roadmap is like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I I guess like a roadmap, but maybe more like an actual plan and not just trying to figure it out and knowing as part of that plan, like milestones you're trying to hit, and then breaking it down from there, like what then do you do to reach that milestone? Sort of, we talk about
Like
this.
mentorship, basically, like not just like the
Yeah,
roadmap.
mentorship's a big part of it too.
I think for most people, it's not just, again, like you said, the roadmap, but somebody to come in and say, if you actually execute this, it's going to work. So I think a lot of people are like, I just need the steps. But if you had the steps, a lot of you still wouldn't execute because you don't know if those steps are actually going to, you don't have like the belief that the steps aren't going to take you completely astray and waste your time and money. But if somebody came in and said, this will guarantee that you hit the success point because I've been there before and did that, I think that that's probably a very key point in that too, that a lot of people don't pick up on. This is why having a mentor is so critical.
Yeah, mentors are at least people that are a step or two ahead of you. Like, it doesn't have to be someone who's done the thing completely and is done and retired and does whatever they want now. Like, people that are at least a level above you. Like, surround yourself with those people. You know, that's exactly what we're trying to do when we bring people that are like-minded into the syndicate. Is there's going to be a range of people that are just starting to people that are already trying to look for massive amounts of funding from that $1 million pool, saying like, give it to me, let me produce more fruit for you as an organization. And it's just what you said. Like, I remember it was partially you, partially my wife, other people that told me like, dude, you are already working out and there's no point in you like do it. Well, besides the benefit of working out, but if you know you want to start something in this space, like, why would you not at least just record yourself doing it? Like, post something out there, post how you feel about the why or why you do certain things. And somebody out there might get inspired. And if you inspire one person, then that's a win. You know what I mean? And you can talk about other things. Like, right now, my biggest
thing it was for George Washington to inspire. I don't even know who's for James Madison, John. I was like, imagine him be like, you know what? We're just gonna overthrow all this. We're gonna burn down the colony structure. Like, he'd be like, are you crazy, dude? We're gonna get us killed. Like, how much? I can't even imagine that. Like,
they probably argued a lot about it, but
I'm sure, because they're like, dude, you're gonna make me sign this document and like legally have a piece of paper that's saying I want this system to be thrown away, that I can get beheaded for. Like, I'm good. I don't like, imagine putting yourself in that position where you have to feel like, again, and that's why I can like, I'm trying to relate to you guys, but like trying to look at somebody who has a vision and say, you can paint it out very well for me. It's still scary to execute. But then I would turn around, you know, George Washington would say, that's exactly why you executed, because nothing of meaning would come unless you guys were willing to take on that risk. The United States wouldn't exist if they weren't willing to also sign their names. It would just be him otherwise. So it has to be, it has to take a substantial risk. It has to be scary. And that's I think I was thinking about the comment, you know, the other day of like, this seems like a rug pull, and I was like, I kind of laughed as I was falling asleep last night, because it's like, why would this be a rug pull? Because it's like, if this, when we execute this, I need it. Like, I want a network of people that I could get help from. I'm not like, you know, I'm not Jesus on the hill. I'm not like the expert. I'm not the entrepreneur guru. I was just making fun of those people. I want people that are smarter than me that I can go reach out to and be like, please help me figure out how to write this like C++ code, or figure out this AI bot, because you're the AI guy in Altura. I want a community of people that I don't have to go out and like just constantly be trying to network and build connections and have that in one place of elite people. I want the ability to be able to just drive to a meetup and then feel like I'm getting something of value out of this, actually educating myself without having to grind and buy thousands of dollars worth of courses that just don't really add a lot in my life. Like, I want to be able to be passionate about helping entrepreneurs and funding companies. I'll do that the rest of my life. Like, that is my passion. As you guys know, I'm a coach. I help people with their businesses, and that's like the biggest result I could accomplish of value that I think in my own life, to help others pursue their passions too. And it's like, this could be a rug pull, but then I'm just wasting the one thing that I've decided I want my life to be about. And like, the amount of pain that would cause me to rug pull people on that, I'd be like, I could never actually pursue that. Then my reputation would be tarnished, and I couldn't actually like be that person. It would cost me more than I would ever gain out of doing something like that. And so, and again, I gained so much more than just being able to lead this structure. I get to experience it just like the rest of you, but I need everyone to believe in it and take action on it. Imagine if there's like 50 other fitness coaches that you get to meet that have substantial followings, that all know different ways to get clients, and then you can just be in a room with them physically in the real world at a meetup. That's invaluable. You can't get that anywhere else, and that would change anybody's success, right? They go and they say, how do I be a fitness coach? They get all the best information to exist on that, because it's real and it's tailored, right? If you have a personal mentor or personal connection, they can tailor that advice to you. If you bought, you know, a blanket course online, that's not really going to add much benefit to your life. And a lot of these courses cost $2, $3, $5,000 for a course like TJR or something like that to stock trade versus paying $200 and then being in a network with millionaire traders. Like that's, you guys got to look at the potential there. And there's a lot of things, right, that go into it. It's hard to take that risk. I understand your guys' position. I can make fun of it to show you how valuable it is, but I understand it's still scary, right? I've put everything in line though to help mitigate that. Timing, right? Timing matters. Timing's why we're even having this conversation today. I know the crypto cycle's turning and whales are already kind of starting to move money to build back up Bitcoin in October and November. You know, history shows that those that act at the beginning of these cycles before it goes absolutely vertical on the grid are the ones that create that generational opportunity. So we're stacking that just as like icing on the cake in addition to all the value we're going to deliver as a community. So I've made this as easy as possible. I'm basically saying, you know, now's the time to jump, but I've also just attached a bungee cord to you, a parachute, and put, you know, a million cushions down. And so all you have to do is say, hey, you know what? Even if I got burned, it's $200. Worst case scenario. If this guy was a complete scumbag, if he was a scammer, if I couldn't trust him with my life, if he was clearly hiding his identity online, which obviously I have a mask on, none of this is real. Right? Hopefully you see the sarcasm there, but it's $200. Like I'm making this as easy as we can get. And so take action. Like I can't make it any easier for you. And I want them to do that on purpose because I don't want to price out the average high schooler that says this could be my opportunity to not have to go to college and take on generational debt almost. It feels like, or put myself in with a ball and chain tied to my ankle to even exist in adulthood. You shouldn't have to do that. And so I want to make it fair for everybody. Last call to action that I have, because we already hit an hour, but October 1st, the whitelist opens, which just means the pre-sale. We only have 200 available. I've already committed over 50 of our tokens. So that's a quarter. So we haven't even started selling them yet, the pre-sale amount of tokens. And I've already sold a quarter of them to committed family, friends, investors that I've personally reached out to in my family on LinkedIn, previous friend circles and things like that. So I've already gone out and sold a quarter of the pre-sale tokens. The rest is going to they're going to fly quickly because supply and demand. And so I want you guys to get the premium price. You can go to alturasociety.com right now. It's attached, and get in the Discord. That's where we're chatting. That's where all the activity will be. It's where you can verify your NFT ownership before the platform is finished being built. It's where you can help us finish designing the art itself, which will replace your NFT at some point. And again, understand it's not just a Discord server. It's a NFT experiment toward global sovereignty. It's the combination that the world has never seen before. It's Silicon Valley 2.0. And I have to have that crazy of a vision. I have to say those words that don't even seem logical yet before it ever becomes real. Otherwise, we're not going to ever accomplish anything significant. History doesn't wait for stragglers. And I definitely am not going to be late to the party this time. I hope you guys won't either. Anthony, you got any last words?
I don't, man. I'm excited. I guess I do. There's only 2 more days. October 1st is 2 days from now. So Caleb and I, we have some big plans to meet up and get you guys a stream going. And we're going to be working tirelessly, probably a sleepless night or two, to ensure that people who are making the decision to invest in themselves, invest in the vision of what Altura is to become, make sure they have a streamlined experience once they become holders of the NFTs. But this is I like to talk about this at the end in previous podcasts too, but this is just as much the holders project as it is Caleb's or mine. Like this is something that can only be as great and as promising and as profitable and as lucrative and as beneficial as the belief of people that join and become holders make it. So this is like the DAO fund is completely funded by the sale of the NFTs. So NFTs, I mean, when we expect, and we've done math and we already have commitments to people that are going to purchase them, but we're expecting to have crazy opportunities for you guys to come and do it. But it's not possible unless there's belief and buy-in in the vision of what we're trying to express in these podcasts, in Caleb's posts on social media, in what we post in the Discord, collabs, things like that. If you're somebody that's thinking about or looking for just an avenue, not even a complete answer, but an avenue to figure out what it is you want to do because you feel like you're called to do something, and I'm only saying this because this is similar to how I feel, more than in this life than you currently do. Maybe you're that person I talked about earlier that has a vision for their life that's different than what they currently live and act upon every single day. This could be, in part because of your belief in it, the thing that brings you out of that way of living and into something better. And it's going to be a team effort, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm super excited. I've been telling everybody I know about it. I know Caleb has too. Obviously, he's even gotten his own family members to commit to making the investment in what Altura is to become, which another reason, like the people that keep commenting like rug rug pull. It's like, dude,
Imagine rug pulling your your own family. That I can't live with. So like, if
imagine.
you guys are looking for a reason right there, that's
Yeah, but
I
two
don't
more
want to
days.
get disowned by my family.
Few more days. It's gonna be awesome. Caleb and I are actually meeting in person, so it should be sweet.
You guys said too the it's not just our project, it's the holders project too. Like
Yeah,
you don't just talk about George Washington, like we've mentioned many times. You talk about the founding fathers, you talk about Paul Revere, right? So like, sewing together this revolution in key movers, 8,888 tokens. That doesn't mean 8,888 members, right? Because people are going to own 20 at a time, right? So we might have a couple thousand people that are in this circle. It's going to get more and more elite as the price goes up, as richer and richer people drive themselves in, as we build a following and hype and celebrity status. The first 200, those are the ones that are remembered as those founding fathers, right? The ones that lit the fire. Those 200 that start Wednesday, again, a quarter of them are already committed early founding members. The 150, let's say, that are left could be you, where you make the upside, you get all the benefits we talked about, and your name becomes carved into that Forbes article as one of the substantial founders that was one of the early believers in the next Amazon level movement or the next PayPal mafia or whatever it was, Silicon Valley as a whole. And that is legacy. History doesn't wait. So the question is, are you going to stand outside and watch? Or is this the one time that you prove yourself wrong, you prove your belief systems wrong, and you take action? Because that's probably the one thing that will guarantee you are successful. Thanks for watching, guys. Altruistsociety.com is the place to go to read the white paper. Once again, our proof that nobody else has in this rug pull economy, and validate why we're the only option to exist from this point forward. Hope you have a great night. Anthony and I will meet in person on Wednesday. Like we said, we'll be live streaming. Hopefully not wearing the same thing like we are now, but something a little more stylish, perhaps. And then we'll be getting it going. It's going to get more and more real from here. Chat in Discord, engage, start meeting one another, because when you buy the NFTs, those are your brothers and sisters in arms. That's where we make the movement happen. You're probably going to meet them in the real world too. So get to know each other. Use the introduction channel and start posting about yourself. Let us learn about you. We'll see you on the inside, and Godspeed. Good luck.